Kingdom Team All Call time. This is the question and answer segment of the broadcast. This is where we take a look at some of your questions that come to us via kingdomreportlive.com. Are you somebody that has a question for us? Submit it at kingdomreportlive.com, and we might just read it here. This week, Danny asks, in light of the recent LA Times article where Disney executives said they were not going to hire many more cast members, do you think the recent poor customer service, i.e. reduced menus, mobile ordering, and long waits for everything at the parks, is here to stay? Is this the beginning of a return of the dark days of Paul Pressler? Now, Paul Pressler, for some context, is somebody who many hardcore Disney fans are not fans of. He is somebody that used to run the Disneyland Resort back when things were probably at their worst, right around the time where things started to transition into California Adventure, and there was a whole era there where things just came off a little cheap and things just became more about retail and dining than it did about the overall park experience. Now, on top of that, several accidents occurred during that time, something Disney is not known for. Lots of maintenance was sort of in dilapidation, and things were just sort of falling apart. So I think that's what he means when it comes to Paul Pressler and sort of that dark era. Now, the article that he's referencing didn't necessarily cite that executives were saying they weren't going to be hiring a whole lot of cast members. I think it was more so the discussion of, and we covered it here in this live broadcast today, about Disneyland sort of bouncing back slowly and being very methodical about how it brings cast members back online. But the question is a valid one. Things have been very different in terms of the pandemic bounce back, and certainly the overall experience is not what it was like prior to the pandemic setting in. So we'll start with Katrina. Do you think that this is poor customer service? You know, you've got the reduced menus, long wait times, mobile ordering for everything. Do you think we are embarking on something not like we've ever experienced before, at least in the modern Disney Parks era?
I think it's getting better. I think it's slowly changing. I know like Lamplight Lounge used to have a reduced menu, and then now they brought back their menu that they used to have down below, and then they created the bar upstairs again. So it's slowly happening. But I think that they are now just keeping it at the bare minimum. So mobile order is getting bad. And I think that the reduced menus it's kind of a shame, like especially for, I'll bring like Grand Californian up, for example. Each location had their own menu,
Mm-hmm.
and now they all share the same menu. It's not very fun. Hearthstone Lounge has the same menu as Craftsman Bar, and then even the Craftsman Grill that's next to the pool bar has the same menu. So they really need to start changing it. And it's just a shame, that they are just cutting it to the bare minimum where they can just buy all of the same product and you're just going to get it throughout. So that definitely needs to change.
I mean, you're paying the same prices, and naturally, the caveat that Disney often throws up at is, yeah, but the capacity is far, smaller that we're letting in, so you are getting a better experience on one end, even though you're still spending the money.
They're watching that for themselves. I think that they, again, like if they're able to cut their costs on food and order the same amount of chicken and the same amount and do nachos around, the area, it's going to save them a lot of money for the resort versus having 3 separate hotel areas where they have 3 separate kinds of dining, and they're just cutting costs, and I get it. That's what they kind of have to do. And especially with the limited amount of cast members that are available for certain locations, they had to do mobile order, and they had to reduce their menu to pump out all this food. But how they did it, how they executed it was really bad. And I think it's progressing more. I'm excited to go back in July to see how it's changed since June 15th. Because again, we went pre-June 15th, and it was chaotic. It was nuts, and I don't know how Disney World was, but in Disneyland it was just it needed to change. So we'll see how it is now, after June 15th, because you never know. Like I think now they're able to open up maybe for walk-ups for foods instead of mobile order and whatnot, but before it was pretty bad.
I mean, we're already hearing that things are shifting in that direction. Certainly a story that we discussed earlier here today was that, we're watching as a whole roster of dining locations and more is being offered and reopened as they do so in a phased capacity. But Tyler, what do you think? Is Disneyland, the overall experience, is it declining by degrees? Do you think it's going to keep that trend, or do you think it's on its way back around?
It's definitely not what it was before the pandemic, like no doubt about that. I don't think there's an argument to even be had there. It is, first of all, I want to say that the cast members themselves are fantastic. They do a great job. I don't think the customer service has declined from the individual cast members. I think it's less, like, I don't want to call it customer service as much as I just want to say it's a worse kind of guest experience, because the mobile ordering has been kind of ridiculous. It took us 45 minutes to get French fries and a soda from Smoke Jumpers, and I even talked to one of the managers holding an iPad, like I mentioned earlier, and I told her, I just gave her feedback. I wasn't angry at her or anything. I just said, when capacity starts going up, this is going to be a huge problem. Like this, this is not okay for the guest experience. Even when going to Sonoma Terrace, you're waiting for a beer, and that took almost an hour to, since the time my window had opened to the time I got my food, we were sitting there for a very long time. And that's not fun. That's not cool. I expect that a lot of these are growing pains. A lot of this stuff with the mobile ordering, they haven't had to do it on such an extensive level before. It is a huge growing pain for them, and I think it'll get better and better. I think one of the things they could definitely change is just putting on the app, like, when you're looking at mobile orders, just for each individual restaurant, say walk-ups also available or something like that, because there's a lot of times where you don't know which restaurants are doing walk-ups, which restaurants are only doing mobile order. And even like Sonoma Terrace, for example, when I was talking to this manager, she's like, oh yeah, depending on staffing, sometimes we'll have registers open, sometimes we won't. So it's not even like it's a day-to-day change sometimes, which is a bad guest experience. It needs to be clear where you can go and buy the food at a register and where you can only do mobile orders. So I think that really needs to change. And I also think that in terms of the menu size, I think in menu options, I guess I should say, I think that'll get better as time goes on. I think that they're slowly rolling these things out. They're slowly training new people to come back and, start operating these businesses again, or restaurants. And, even places like Napa Rose have a decreased menu right now. So, that's not going to stay forever. That's definitely going to change. We're definitely going to start seeing new menu items coming, and you're seeing it with like Lamplight Lounge right now and everything, where they're kind of slowly expanding their menu once again. So that's also going to be kind of coming back, I think. I think the real problem that we run into is just the lack of how many cast members there are, because
and the ones that are there are overworked, and then they have to call out because how many people can actually work like 6 days in a row, 10 hours? I mean, you're going to break at some point, right? And so, and it's a bummer too, because they don't even give it, if you don't know, like Disney doesn't give you advance notice if you're going to be working late. It's not like a 9 to 5 job. It's like,
well, they do sometimes, but yeah, they will say you're extended today.
You're like literally like in the middle of a shift, and then they're like, we need you for a couple more hours.
I hope you didn't plan anything after work.
Yeah, right. And then I hope you didn't have a nice date or anything, because you got to work. And then if you don't, you kind of have this like sense of like, you can't really choose, because it's either people are going to hate you at work, or you're just gonna, and then you're gonna have to deal with that the next day.
Well, there's this overwhelming sentiment too that like Disney, somebody else will come and take your job if you don't want it, which just sucks. I think it's a horrible mentality, but that's honestly how I think they look at it sometimes. And so I don't know. I think we're not getting back into these like Paul Pressler days necessarily, but I think there's a lot of things that they're working on that do need some time to flourish, because we're obviously things are not perfect right now by any means.
Yeah. So be nice to cast members, because they're overworked.
They're really doing the best they can, and really it comes from the top. if you think you're getting poor customer service right now,
Blame Chip back.
it's all from the top. And I feel for the cast members out there because they're working as hard as they can to keep us having a great time.
Keep in mind, I think it's important also to, all things in context here. They are bouncing back from the pandemic. We give them a lot of, I guess, rope here, for the sake of trying to understand that they're a business that's unlike anything else. They're trying to, in a phased reopening capacity, get everything back online while also trying to train thousands of people. So there's, a huge logistical hurdle also in place here that they have to get over in order to bring the full experience back to a good place. So I definitely think that we're on the upswing. I don't necessarily think that, Danny, you asked, I don't think that we're going down. I don't think that we're back to Paul Pressler era. I don't think that we're going that direction. I think there are a lot of cost-cutting issues at play that are a problem, but I definitely don't think that the overall Disney Parks experience is going to suffer a ton. I think that we are going to start seeing things get better, not worse. So certainly a lot of things, again, at play, and yes, cast members are being overworked at the moment. So please be patient if you're in the theme parks moving forward as they continue to wait for the reserves, the cavalry to show up for the sake of helping them out. But lots to consider there on that question, but I don't think that we are heading down. I think we're heading back up. And again, if you're somebody that is not comfortable visiting a Disney park because it's less of an experience at the moment and you're still paying the same price, don't go. Wait.
Wise words right there.
Just don't go. I don't understand. I hear it from people from time to time. Well, I'm still paying the same amount. Well, why would you go? If you don't feel like it's a value that's worth it. So please don't. Don't go. Don't put yourself through it. It's something that a lot of people, stress about and have concerns about. And I know many times of the year, for certain families and certain situations, they can only visit during certain times. But all things considered, we're coming out of a pandemic. There's a lot to think about here that they're trying, again, to get over a major hurdle. So all things to consider for your next trip. Let us know in the comments section. Are you somebody that feels like the Disneyland experience is sliding downward, or is it on the uptrend? As always, we look forward to hearing your perspective.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.